People who cry easily are often the most misunderstood people in the room. They're usually labeled as weak, too emotional, too sensitive, too soft for the world. But psychology suggests something very different. Crying easily isn't always a sign of emotional instability. In many cases, it's actually a sign that your emotional processing system is highly active. Psychologists often connect this to something called high emotional sensitivity. This means your brain processes emotional information more deeply and more intensely than average. You don't just notice emotions. You absorb them. A sad movie scene affects you longer. A harsh comment replays in your head. Someone else's pain can genuinely impact your mood. And while that sounds exhausting, it often is. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people think crying is just sadness leaving the body. It's not that simple. Crying is also a form of emotional regulation. Your nervous system uses tears to release emotional tension and reduce internal overload. In other words, some people cry not because they're weak, but because their brain is trying to restore balance. Think of it like an emotional pressure valve. When emotions build too quickly or too intensely, crying helps the body regulate. But this is where people get misunderstood. Society tends to reward emotional suppression. People who hold everything in are often seen as strong. People who visibly feel things are often judged. So people who cry easily may spend years feeling ashamed of something that is often just a natural stress response. But here's the part nobody talks about. People who cry easily are often highly empathetic. They pick up on emotional details other people miss. Tone changes, facial expressions, subtle tension in a room. Their brains are constantly scanning emotional information. That level of awareness can be a strength, but it can also be overwhelming. Because when your brain is tuned into everything, life feels louder. Conflict hits harder. Disappointment cuts deeper. Beauty feels more beautiful. Pain feels more painful. Everything is amplified. And that's the real psychology behind crying easily. It's not always fragility. Sometimes, it's emotional intensity colliding with an overstimulated nervous system. So if you cry easily, maybe the goal isn't to become colder. Maybe it's to understand your emotional wiring better. To regulate, not suppress. Because people who cry easily aren't necessarily weak. They may just feel life in higher definition than everyone else.